Hello, my name's Michael Keneally, and this video is on behalf of our Druid Forest School, and we're bringing it out for Samhain, which is in a few days' time. Now we're actually standing on the top of Knocknarea summit, and behind Maggie with the camera is the famous 5,500-year-old Knocknarea cairn. And you'll see all this because Maggie's going to do a pan of this outstanding landscape at the end of the video. So what I'm going to tell you is, well, first of all, have a look at my Druid Forest School site, where there's actually a worldwide course to study the Ogham, the Druid mystical tree alphabet, with its wonderful connections to other worlds. But also on the Druid Forest School site, there are courses to meet, in a visionary way, to meet the superb, splendid and vast gods and goddesses of the ancient Irish. Now there's quite a lot to pack into this brief video, so I'm going to talk about the gods and goddesses in a second video, sort of part 2 to this. So first of all, let's honour the site where we stand now. So these monuments, this great cairn and several tombs and houses, were built by people 5,500 years ago. And they're part of a culture, a wonderful culture, that created so many sacred monuments around here, Carrowmore, Carrowkeel, for example. And basically, the absolute fact is, and this is proved by recent DNA analysis and analysis of the wheat offerings they put in their tombs to their beloved dead, they came from Turkey. In fact, they came from the Catalhayuk region of Turkey, and they spread outward from there on their wicker framework boats covered in cow's hide and with a sail and oars. Now obviously it took them a long time to get here as they slowly migrated, driven by population pressure, by climate change in southern Turkey, and by the magnificent human urge to go for the horizons and to expand. And so they went up the Mediterranean through Sardinia, Gibraltar, along the Spanish coast, along Brittany, and they ended up here. And once they had established their beachheads, they were able to do the journey from Turkey so much quicker. And you get in the medieval manuscripts, like the Book of Invasion, stories of people travelling from Greece to here. Okay, why did they come here? Well, the fact is that the energies in these rocks round here, like on the battlefield on Moitura, and on the court tomb called by the English landlords Deer Park, there are incredible earth energies, and that was what they sought. And I personally believe that the very strong quartz-laden rocks producing these energies, well, the energies were magnified by their magicians and priests as places fitting to be the central community events and above all to bury their dead. So we're standing here on a powerful, political and spiritually powerful sacred site, and we're looking at the sacred landscape of the people. There's a lot that can be said about the pattern of earth energies here, but I can't fit it in this video. And so behind me is a huge cairn with millions of rocks that were carried up to the top from the bottom of this hill 5,500 years ago, 5,300 years ago in the case of the cairn. And it's called colloquially Queen Maeve's cairn. Now Queen Maeve was the Queen of Connaught. This part of the beautiful west of Ireland is called Connaught, and she was the Queen of Connaught 2,000 years ago, the same time as Boadicea, Cartomandua, and who was the name of the last pharaoh? Can't remember. Cleopatra, yes, thank you. The last of a type, maybe, thank God. Sorry. And she's said to be buried here, and she's said to be buried facing the enemies of Connaught in Ulster. She's buried upright, allegedly, holding her weapons, and it may well be true. The cairn has never been investigated, but it was already, 3,000 years old when she died. And incidentally, I said I do courses to meet the gods and goddesses of the ancient Irish, and the role of Queen Maeve in causing the whole of Ireland to plunge into war over an obscene argument with her husband as to who was the richest. In fact, that story, the cattle raid of Cooley, the Tarn, contains such immense truths that you can learn on my course about the Morrigan, the war goddess, and her hero, Cuchulainn, who sadly could not perceive the true nature of the battle, who sadly did not recognise the Morrigan the several times she appeared to her beloved hero, and so he died. But as I say, it's a short video, so I'm just wondering what else I can say. Well, of course, yes, behind me is Ben Bulben Mountain. And Ben Bulben has the most sacred earth energies, indeed at its foot as well in the forest. And I want to draw to your attention the wonderful poem by W.B. Yeats, The Hosting of the Sidhe. Now the Sidhe are the name the gods and goddesses of the Tuatha De Danann, the ancient Irish, came to be known by, and they sort of, survived, believe it or not, the persecutions of the Catholic Church when St. Patrick turned up just a bit to the south in 432 and destroyed the ancient religion. And the imperial Catholic Church was bought into by the local kings because it propped their position up against a more tribal society. And then they lost their language, their land, and their children, and their sovereignty. But the whole point is, when the Tuatha De Danann came to this part of Ireland to restore the original connection to the gods, they simply found that humanity were not worthy of their message. And when they had to cope with yet another invasion, the invasion of the Milesians from Spain down there, they said, this isn't worth it. We can't maintain our spiritual specialness, our connection to the purpose of the gods, to Goddess Danu, to Goddess Bridget, informing this landscape, for we're having to defend ourselves against ignorant warlike Milesians, etc. So they went to the Hollow Hills, and the wonderful thing is that the door to the Hollow Hills, the door to the Tuatha De Danann, was opened, just that tiny crack, just over 100 years ago, here on this landscape, by W.B. Yeats, Lady Gregory, Ella Young, and A.E., George Russell. And W.B. Yeats is buried at the foot of Ben Bulben. His commitment was to this sacred landscape, and he wrote this wonderful poem, The Hosting of the Sidhe, where the gods and goddesses of the ancient Irish, with their poetry, their force, their power, their beauty, their movement, host or gather here on Knocknarea, and they swoop across Sligo Bay. In fact, going that way, the poem reveals, because they go across the bed of the Hag, which is in the Ballygawley Mountains there, and they end up on the sacred pinnacle, and there in their pure, sublime energy state, as facets of the great divine, they reside. So look at my Druid Forest School website. There's courses about many of the Irish gods and goddesses, and I'll mention these in the separate video. There's Druid mystical energy work, and there's the Ogham. And coming up probably early 2019, there'll be details of the visits to the sacred sites around here, where we can journey to meet the energies of the sacred site and meet the gods and goddesses of the ancient Irish. So it's the most beautiful landscape. Maggie's going to do a pan in a moment. We're at the end of October. This video is we're going to be brought out to celebrate Samhain. It's beautiful, pure air, bright sunlight. Bring your suntan lotion. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you. And now Maggie's going to pan.